Is recruiting broken?
I wouldn't say broken. I would say insanity is where we are right now.
Dysfunctional?
Yeah, dysfunctional insanity, right? Every time we get excited about a candidate, I don't hold my breath. Either they won't make it to the final stage with me or, they'll take a different offer.
It is about candidate experience, and it is about, speed to candidate and how quickly can you get to the offer and get them onboarded, because somebody else will. Can you hear that? That's the sound of another candidate ghosting a recruiter. I mean, it's been a long-held tradition that recruiters and companies were supposed to ghost candidates. It was almost passed law in several states, but now the tables are turned. The most common complaint I hear from recruiters is, I got ghosted by another candidate. The candidate not only didn't show up for their interview, but they didn't call, they didn't show, and they won't return any of my calls, texts, or emails. Man, that's a harsh pill to swallow. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? My guest today has a passion for talent acquisition that can be traced back to her early days as a novice sourcer and recruiter. Tasked with a mission for professional development, she latched onto blogs like CareerXroads, ERE, SourceCon, and AIR's training. She's currently the head of marketing and community at Hiretual, and they've just released their 2021 State of Candidate Engagement Report. Please welcome to the show, Shannon Pritchett.
Hi.
Hey, that's it.
Do I need much more of an introduction? I think you handled it all.
I did, but I like to get a few, at least a few seconds. You've recently moved over to Hiretual. What are you doing?
Yes. Oh, so this is my first endeavor into marketing. It turns out I had a lot more instincts than I realized. I've always kind of separated myself from the marketing aspects because I know there's a lot of similarity between what marketing departments do and what talent acquisition does, and it's funny now. It's kind of I'm embracing all of that. So it's like I've been running from this job my entire career, and now I'm just drinking from a water hose, and it's great. So that is completely new to me. I just want to make sure I work every single job imaginable within this industry. And so marketing is up next. And I absolutely love it, especially for a SaaS-based startup type company. A lot of what we do, it's bringing in leads to the business. And, it's a lot like bringing in candidates to an organization, just with completely different tactics and a lot more money.
A lot more money in on the marketing side, right?
Yeah.
So you're still keeping your hands. I mean, Hiretual is a candidate sourcing platform per se, right? That's not what it only does, but it's really about candidate engagement. Why was it important for you to throw out this, the 2021 State of Candidate Engagement Report?
Yeah, that's something I was really passionate about. And it's one of the first projects I launched right when I took over the marketing department. Hiretual itself does have an engagement product that not a lot of people are familiar with. We help you set up drip campaigns and contact candidates directly through our platform. And obviously, we're not writing messages on behalf of people. We don't really tell you, our product doesn't tell you how a message should go. So I wanted some content that reflect, one, the state of the current economy, right? That we are a candidate-driven market, that there's way more opportunities available than talent. The average time to fill keeps going higher and higher amongst, a lot of different companies and industries that we typically see. And so I wanted to, one, educate kind of our customers and our user base of, what does good communication and engagement look like? And the second is, call that attention that, our product can help with this in terms of drip campaigns, but really just showcase the importance of, you really need to make sure that you are standing out amongst the crowd. Especially with so many opportunities and crazy salaries. And so that was the essence of this report. And, I didn't want it to be my own voice. So I wanted to bring in three of the best in the industry, the Katrina Kibben and Katrina Collier and Vanessa Rath. And I just was extremely excited, to launch this. And I was very much pleased with how it turned out. If you actually download the report and go through it, it's very interactive. And so our development team did a great job of doing that. But I just love the areas that they covered and the message that they sent out to anyone who picks this up.
So recruiting is based on building candidate relationships and candidate engagement. I read through the report quickly. I've only had a couple hours with it, but is recruiting broken? Because there wasn't a whole lot of sunshine and unicorns in this report. Job descriptions are broken. The job ads are broken. The emails and LinkedIn invites are broken. Social media channels are broken. Getting it back into the ATS and then the ATS talking to the CRM. There's a lot of broken pieces in recruiting.
I wouldn't say broken. I would say insanity is where we are right now. Yeah, dysfunctional insanity, right? What's the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's where we are today. The pandemic has completely changed the game for recruiting. It's brought in the welcomeness and the necessity for automated tools, especially artificial intelligence. The old traditional methods that have been working for the previous decade and a half no longer work. Right. It's I'm not going to, get on my LinkedIn horse and be like, LinkedIn is broken. LinkedIn doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. But, now you have more people than ever utilizing the same exact techniques and the same exact methods. And they all have higher demand and more job responsibility and tighter deadlines. And they're expecting the exact same result. And it doesn't work. There's been a huge change and a huge shift. And I think now more than ever, people need to start relying on more technology just to help them see areas that they potentially haven't been able to see before. And if you're relying on, traditional means like job boards and LinkedIn and spamming candidates and doing all that stuff that, might have filled your position prior to the pandemic, that's just not going to work because there are millions of other people out there doing the exact same thing you're doing, expecting that exact same result. And the only person that loses is the candidate.
What this reminds me of, you ever see Erin Brockovich?
Yes, love that movie.
And there's a scene in there where there's an attorney that's taking over the case from Erin, and Erin is sitting there at the table, and she's like, "Well, you're not going to know the status of every one of these cases." And she's like, "Really? Test me, or let me prove it, right?" And she starts, "Well, what about this person?" And she reads off their address, their phone number, their name, and their kids' names, and their date of birth, and and their uncle is this, and their cousins is this, and they live on this street, and they lived in the Plume, and blah blah blah. That's what recruiting used to be able to do years ago, right?
Oh, when we recruited, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I've been doing this for 26 years. I mean, I always had 20, 30 recs on my desk. That was no big deal, even sometimes 40, 50 recs, but I never had tens of thousands of candidates in my candidate pool or millions. Of candidates. I was dealing with 50, 100 candidates at a time. I was batching them out in 10, 20 candidates. I'd screen them, send them over to the hiring manager, get the next 10 or 20. It was doing everything in batches. Now we're expected to go through, 10,000 candidates in a week, and it's just not practical. There's no way you can't do this without some kind of artificial intelligence. It would certainly make the job a lot easier.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's the quantity of information that's readily available. I mean, when I kind of made my name in this industry, it was by hacking websites and manipulating URLs and pulling back hidden information, right? I was kind of like that aha,
phishing and X-raying and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, all the great stuff that we learned in our classes. Yeah.
You weren't being nefariously going behind their firewalls and stuff, but yeah.
Not 100% of the time. I have done that on occasion, but
there were some gray areas, right?
More like if there was a loose firewall, I'd find it.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't exist anymore, like it used to in 2005, right?
Right.
And so now it's like anyone can be a sourcer and anyone can be a recruiter. And just because anyone can press a button and get access to millions of candidates doesn't make you a good recruiter or a good sourcer, right? And so it's like, how do you bring in that Erin Brockovich mentality, to millions and millions of different candidate information in that data set? That's the big difference, in my opinion, between a successful recruiter nowadays as opposed to back then. is, where sourcing has become so much easier, but selecting has become so much harder. And the hardest part that I'm hearing right now is just getting the interest level from any candidate, getting that engagement. And I'm feeling the pain
application
point
rates
trying
have
to staff
dropped.
my marketing team, right? It's like every time we get excited about a candidate, I don't hold my breath, and because either they won't make it to the final stage with me, or they'll take a different offer before we can even give them one, or it's outrageously higher than the outrageously higher offer I gave them.
Speed is of the essence right now. So how fast, how quickly can you, get them interviewed, get them, an offer? I just had an episode, just ended an episode with Leah Daniels, and we had that same conversation. It is about candidate experience, and it is about, speed to candidate and how quickly can you get to the offer and get them onboarded, because somebody else will, I
Yeah.
guarantee you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I keep also hearing, I'm on a lot of forums just like you on Facebook and LinkedIn and tons of groups and things like that, and listen to podcasts all the time. But I keep hearing like some certain phrases that are kind of funny to me. So the first one is recruiters need to start thinking like marketers. Well, they should have been thinking like marketers all along, right? But hiring managers need to start thinking like candidates and like recruiters. That's interesting. Marketers need to better understand recruitment marketing. Branding needs to understand recruit or employer branding. So everybody needs to start thinking like someone else, it seems like, right?
Yeah. I've been a big advocate, myself and Brett Coyne, who really instilled this passion in me about how recruiters need to start thinking like marketers. It's the whole inbound, outbound approach. And it makes complete sense. It's just a different mindset of thinking. I'll tell you what, it's funny, now that I'm on the marketing side, I'm getting to know more and more marketers. I thought there were a lot of phonies within TA, the kind of people that talk themselves up. And once you get to know them, you're like, oh, you do that? The marketing side is way worse. I think one of the things that drive me nuts with this whole mentality thing is, we saw this like 10 years ago, Jeff. Remember when there's all these products coming, all of these, what was it called? Like, that dating app, and you swipe Tinder
Oh,
for
Tinder and
recruiting.
Grindr and all the others.
Right. Yeah. We saw all
Bumble
these
and
apps come up for recruiting, and then people, like all these software engineers, thinking they can do recruiting better than we can, and all that stuff, and all those companies fizzled out, right? And it's still not like we don't have a competitive landscape, but a lot of those companies who coined the phrase Tinder for recruiting, you typically don't see anymore. And now I get on LinkedIn, and it's like everyone has an opinion about recruiting and hiring managers, and it's hysterical. Like, I'll look at a post from somebody that I've never heard of within this industry, that has some subpar advice, and it will have like 100,000 likes and amen, 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 amen. And I'm like, are you actually taking that advice, and are you actually going to your hiring team and your HR department and say, let's actually implement this? Because I feel like everyone's so vocal nowadays with their opinions,
what
their mindsets.
what they're doing is they're posting it on Lempost and automating, from thousands of people all around the world that they have no even connections with, right?
Exactly. So, yeah. It's like, I feel like everyone thinks that they can be a recruiter nowadays. Everyone thinks they can offer recruiters advice and stuff. And it's just, but nobody's actually like I want to see somebody come on LinkedIn and be like, hey, this is what we are actually doing to solve the problem. Not here's my opinion, right? What they say, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one.
And they all stink, right?
Yeah, right. Like, it's, oh, come on, 15 minutes in I had to cuss. But but yeah, it's like everyone has this mindset, but no one's actually taking the time to implement that. No one's actually taking the time to execute on these ideas and morals and thoughts and opinions and stuff like that. And I think that's part of the struggle with recruiting right now. It's I can go on and on of where the problems arise, but to me, it's that we have these ideas that aren't being executed. We know what it takes, but companies aren't willing to make those changes. And so therefore, companies will continue to suffer. It's like I can give any nurse recruiter access to our product, and we have a lot of healthcare companies, but I can't change how much they pay their nurses. I can't, change how much they
You can't change whether they log in or not to use it.
or the hours, the COVID cases,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And it's like, give the recruiters a break. That's what I'm trying to say. give them access to a different set of candidates, right? Give them automation, but at the same point, you need to make their jobs a little easier by treating your employees well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Imagine that.
I know it's so
It's
hard.
not just candidate experience, it's actually employee experience, right? One of the phrases inside of the report was, but the other problem is people, especially those that have skills in demand, they're avoiding recruiters. I
Yeah,
paraphrased, but you think that candidates are actually avoiding recruiters?
yes, 100%. I used to think that was bullshit, and I was just like a developer with Asperger's that just hated people, right? And then, talking to my friends outside of the industry who are mediocre at their jobs, right? Who just collect that paycheck and try to get by and, work the shift and everything. And to hear how they get hit up time and time and time and time again for recruiters is just unbelievable. It's comical on their end, because they're like, "Really, this is what you do for a living, Shannon?" I'm like, "No, I'm in marketing." But it's really, I mean, I would say 99% of my friends outside the industry do not log into LinkedIn anymore, just for the simple fact that every time they get in, it's crappy content that people are posting, and it's crappy messages in their in-mail, and they just don't want anything to do with it anymore. And that tells me, if you're active and you're actively pursuing jobs and doing stuff like that, then you're going to probably be active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And that's what LinkedIn's algorithm is designed to show us. But to have my friends, and they're, again, no one's a superstar, no one's like, in my opinion, should be that sought after, except they have the job title that is sought after. And they refuse to, get anywhere near LinkedIn, just because of the sheer volume of candidates, or I'm sorry, from recruiters that they receive.
So been doing email campaigns and video stuff, and I didn't do so much text message campaign even when I was at IBM, because texting cost money, right? And we didn't have a whole
Hmm.
lot of budget, but email was free, right?
Yep.
So even now, text messaging, if you're using Twilio, it's 0.0075 cents, maybe 2 cents a message. At volume, that gets expensive, right? But I used to be able to send 5 to 10 emails to different people, and I'd get a 30 to 60% response rate.
Hmm.
Now, sometimes some campaigns that we're sending out get a 5 or 10% response rate. So why is that?
That's a very, very good question. I just think the world got noisy. I mean, the first email marketing campaign was successfully launched in 1978, which tells me it's outdated, right? Somebody got a list of like real estate agents. I forget how the story goes, and they sent an email to try to sell them something, and like 75% of the people became customers. It's like, and then that was the aha moment, like, oh my gosh, we can reach people in mass scale. So here we are 45
Yeah.
years later with the
Scrape
same,
45 million emails and you send out enough of
right,
them, you're going to
with
get
the
enough hits,
exact
right?
same content. And here's the problem, Jeff. You know your numbers, and I know my numbers from when I was a recruiter. Recruiters don't know their numbers right now. They
No.
don't at all. They don't measure, they don't ask, teams don't hold them accountable. When I was at CareerXroads, I pinged every single head of TA involved within that community. And I asked them, hey, who's tracking response rates? And I was hit with, why? Who has the time for that? I'm like, who has time? It should be automated. What are you
All they
talking
care
about?
about is the outcome. They don't care
They just
about,
care about the outcome,
right.
right? And I grew up in a quantity environment where I had a call sheet and I hit 50 calls a day and 5 phone screens and 1 submittal, right? But it took the 1 submittal took 50 phone screen or 50 calls, and everything we did in the staffing environment was a
50
quantity.
calls, 10 connects, 10 connects,
Yep.
1 to 2 qualified interested available candidates should be your Smiths on a
To be
daily
your
basis.
yes, yeah, exact same metrics, right? Yeah, I think if you're my age or older, then you probably grew
I'm
up in the
definitely
same
older than you,
environment.
Shannon.
Yeah, and it's we didn't send mass emails out them. Sure, we spammed and stuff like that, but it's not to the level to it was today. And what we did work back then, because I think we had, we were relying on more active approaches that you traditionally saw online, like job boards.
Yeah.
Was a firm one. I think the game changed with LinkedIn, but I think You got to hold the technology companies also responsible for these low numbers. Like, why doesn't LinkedIn ever share their in-mail response rate?
Oh,
Because it
well, the
sucks.
reason is I saw some data on this a couple years ago. I read a lot of studies on, metrics and things like that. One of the studies was on LinkedIn. The average person on LinkedIn logs in once every 2.5 to 3 weeks. They do
Mhm.
three main things. The first thing is they delete their inbox. Not read their inbox, they delete their inbox, right?
Guilty,
They don't
except
go.
when I see an email or a message from you, then I
Exactly, right? So you recognized me, boom, you're going to respond back to it. But if
yeah,
you don't recognize the person, they're connected to so many people on so many different platforms. Unless it is immediately interesting and immediate, it's not, you don't have 3 seconds anymore. You've got a split second.
yep,
So, and it has to be through facial recognition or, some kind of name recognition. And
yep.
that's why it takes 15, I think it's 12 to 15 touch
12
points
right
on
now.
every
Yeah.
single candidate to actually get a response. You're not going to get a response off of one email or
No.
one invitation. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
And it's going to take multiple things. Use your InMail, use an email, try a text message, right? And let's try to customize it a little bit more. Somebody sent me, so I've gotten a couple head of marketing requests, not much, which I find hilarious. I'm like, I have 6 months of experience and you want me to be like the CMO at your company? Like,
Yeah.
I'm trust me, I'm
In a
not qualified.
multi-billion-dollar organization, right?
Yeah, but industry I know nothing about. I was like, but it's the I have responded to. I get hit up probably at least 100 messages on LinkedIn. My email is actually much worse. People trying to sell me some kind of marketing platform or product or something like that. And the only ones I respond to are when they bring up something that they read within my profile. Usually, if it has to do with the University of Wisconsin or swimming, then I will immediately respond and give them a kudos for actually doing some research about me and stuff like that. And it's that's what you kind of need. And God, I feel like we've been saying this since like 2015. But in a candidate-driven market where there's more jobs than people and everyone has access to similar technology, it's you can't blame the technology anymore. You got to blame the end user or give them the tools and the data that they need to be better at their jobs.
And I mean, that's LinkedIn pulled back. I mean, they saw a huge uptick on the number of invites that were getting sent out, especially because of automation. Their platform got open sourced, is what I'm calling it. It's not technically open source, but it definitely got opened up because of a few of the lawsuits that were out there. So a lot more people have access to all the data on LinkedIn. You can scrape it out much more easily now using various tools, Gem, and whatever other platform is, Alfred, etc. So it's not hidden anymore. It's a lot easier to find candidate contact information.
Very much so.
So recruiting's changed forever, hasn't it?
I think so. If you read like the industry, not recruitment industry, but more like workforce planning and predictions and stuff like that, they said we're going to have this problem, for the next 9 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And so,
Look, baby boomers are retiring at a historic rate, right? On average, they're
there's
doing
that.
between
Yeah.
2 and 3 million people a year were retiring, being removed from the workforce. That leaves a
And
huge
it's
gap.
finally nice to see data where people say, hey, we're kind of in this problem because, people don't have babies like they used to,
Yeah.
which
And
is,
now, but
true.
because of COVID, instead of 2.5 to 3 million people retiring, we had like 6 million people in 2021 retire.
Oh, yeah.
That
I
is
mean, you saw that
twice
problem with
the
the
normal
airline
rate.
industry, right? Like people are like, whoa, look what happened with the airline industry this summer. They're like, what the hell happened? It's like, okay, when you had this mass buyout that occurred at the start of the pandemic where everyone went into early retirement, and then the other half of the airline employees were given options to take an extended time off for fun. Well, it's not when you fly airplanes and you work on an airplane, you got to get retrained when you come back in. And so really nobody saw this crazy demand happening, but that's exactly where it was. It's people hung up their towels and said, okay, that's it. I wish I was a little older so I could have done the same thing. My husband actually looked at a buyout. He didn't take it at all, but it's just that's yeah, we kind of created our own problem. And it's I think people look at recruiters to be the magic bullet that fixes it, but to me, it's you need to go above and beyond realizing what candidates actually want. Like I said, you need to make it easier on the recruiters because we don't control the salaries, we don't control the benefits, we don't control DE&I within our organizations. We don't control gender equity. So I
They don't
think
include, they really control one thing, that's candidate outreach. And they
candidate
control it
outreach,
from
that's it.
only the requisitions that are on their desk.
Yeah.
Company has 500 open recs, only about 10 or 20, maybe 30 are assigned to that individual recruiter. So
Mhm.
10, 15%, right? So go from there. You can't blame all the problems on a single recruiter at getting any given
I don't think you
organization.
can blame it on talent acquisition at all. I was on an interview with
Uh,
Bloomberg right before this actually, and then they were asking very similar questions. And I kind of said, I was like, they're like, why isn't everyone using AI right now? And I was like, because TA teams still aren't taking serious. The money is not being allocated, right? They come to HR and leadership comes to TA teams are like, I need more DE&I candidates, but I'm not going to increase your budget, right?
yeah.
The budget on the TA level is shockingly low, at least it is compared to like a marketing department. And that's something that, I learned at CareerXroads, something I learned at SourceCon, is something that I've learned, today is how little TA teams have compared to how much other departments have and how much they actually need to be able to solve their problems. It's to me, it's just kind of like, hello, like, give these people a chance to be successful at their jobs. Your organization will win because of it.
Yeah. We just had a couple clients, where they were all gangbusters. They said, in January, we're going to be increasing, headcount by 30 to 50, even 150 people. But, oh, by the way, where budgets just got slashed by 10%.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
you
And we need half of
increased.
those people to be an underrepresented minority.
Yes. Yeah. Good luck with that. Right.
Yeah.
So there's always
It's
going to
true.
be that
Yeah.
disparity, right?
It's like everyone wants their cake and to eat it too. And we're all feeling it right now. Inflation is real, right? That's another problem. People are going to want more money. They're going to be going to the companies that are going to pay it, but also be able to offer the benefits that are expected nowadays. That was another change from the pandemic. You see those kind of priorities. And I really do. I feel bad for the healthcare recruiters, right now that are passionate about their jobs, but are just beating their heads against the wall because they're competing against unrealistic offers. Travel nurses are making like $160 an hour right now. That's like
Not only
$350,000 a
that,
year.
but how do you, with your own conscience, take a nurse that is highly valued, saving lives at one hospital,
Yeah.
just to move them over to another hospital for an extra $5 or $10 an hour and knowing that they're going to be going into an absolute shit show?
Yeah, exactly,
It's a
exactly.
tough gig.
But nurses do move. I come from a family of
Oh,
nurses.
they do.
They
Absolutely.
do
Yeah.
move for that. But at the same point, it's like I'm always shocked at some of the companies that pay them so low. My mom, when she first started in nursing, we both graduated college the exact same time, and so this was her second career is nursing. She's been with the same employer for like 15 years. And I remember when she was making like $15 an hour when she first started. And I was just like, what? And the where she works, they have a very well-known private college that's associated with it. That college, and I used to work there too, that college doesn't offer nursing degrees because the tuition is higher than the starting salary. I was just, we wonder where are the nurses?
Yeah.
Well, do you want someone saving your life making $15 an hour? Do you want someone teaching your kids that make $15 an hour? Paramedics make like $8 or $9 an hour. It's like, what is with our society?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you can go
We're
to
truck drivers
literally
make more than
McDonald's is
paramedics.
hiring people at $15 an hour now, right?
21.
Yeah.
I,
In some
I think.
locations, in my location, it's around 15. So
Oh yeah,
13, 15.
someone sent me a billboard that said 21. I'm in Texas. It's around 15 to 17 right now, and Walmart is as well, and all these places. And I'm just
And
like,
don't get me wrong, we're not disparaging the work that people at McDonald's or Burger King or any of the fast food,
but
because
when
they
you
work
compare
their
it to,
butts off for the most part. I mean,
yeah,
it is dirty, greasy, nasty customer service. It is tough work. You deserve
yes,
every freaking penny of it. But my concern is McDonald's can absorb that cost and they can pass that on. You pay an extra 50 cents for a burger. They've certainly got the volume to pick it up. But, small little, hair salon, there is no way that they're going to be able to, absorb that cost. They're already charging back the chairs to the
yeah,
individual hairdressers,
hmm
or a small little, I don't know, handbag boutique that's selling maybe 40, 50 handbags a month. They're not going to be able to absorb that either. So
yeah. We'll
there's
still
just
we'll
not
start
enough
to
profit
see a
left.
lot. Tuition at my son's preschool just went up $300 a month. um, and they wrote this long letter that said why. It was, they're like, we have done everything we can to retain our staff. I haven't known anyone who's left his preschool. I'm sure some people have. But they're like, and now we have no choice but to increase it by this month. And I'm one family, compared to many that are there. And I'm kind of told my husband, I'm like, well, it's cheaper than a nanny. And it's the same point. I was like, if we can contribute a little bit more to retain people that he loves who watch our kids and trust, absolutely 100%. Like I will pay that money. And this for me, the same goes for healthcare, same goes for anything. It's just I just wish these giant corporations would start to realize that we're not a giant corporation, we're a medium-sized business, but we have within our company as well. And I've been really blessed with a CEO that allows me to offer premium benefits to some of my employees to retain them. And so that's something that I've been really glad, and if only we can speed up the hiring process, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But yeah, that we've been throwing out the extra cash, the extra incentives. We changed our PTO policy, just to make Hiretual like a really, really cool, fun now place to work. I don't know if it has in the past. I've only been working there for so long, but when I first came on, I was like, these are benefits. And it looks completely
It's a
different.
startup company, right? Most startup companies, they can barely afford the benefits, right? I mean, we're a small startup company and healthcare benefits per person is over $1,200, $1,500 a month, depending on what state they're in. In
Ugh,
one state, it's $2,000 a month.
gotta be
That's our
California.
healthcare cost.
I
It's
don't know.
ridiculous.
I actually have benefits through my husband's employer. I know we do offer free within our own company. But yeah, I mean, it's extremely expensive to run and manage a business, and that's something. It's funny. It's as you grow in leadership and you grow in these positions, that's one area where I don't think I could ever run for those reasons you just gave. Overhead costs, stuff like that. Now, I've had to
Yeah.
build sourcing centers and hubs in remote part of the world and deal with that kind of head cost, but it's nothing to what we think about in the U.S. in terms of salaries and equipment and stuff like that. So
Yeah, it's starting up, and that's what I love the idea of raising the minimum wage. I mean, right here in North Carolina, it's like 750, 775 an hour, something like that. And I love the idea of raising it up to 15 or $18
me
an
too.
hour,
Oh,
but that will absolutely destroy small businesses, which is 85% of our US economy. They are not going to be able to absorb that cost. There's just no
mm-mm.
way.
Yeah.
Not without having massive, doubling the price of goods. If I
Well,
can double the
it's
amount of goods and services that I sell,
yeah.
then yeah, I can afford to pay more people. But
It's
that
to
doesn't
me,
help.
it's no, and it's not. It to me, it's like it's more than that. It's more than just raising the price of minimum wage because that needs to happen. But so like, it goes back to what we're just saying. So then a McDonald's worker makes the same as a nurse. that makes the same as a teacher,
Right.
it doesn't, that makes the same as a police officer. I think
So
to
what's the
me,
difference whether you're broke at 8.50 or 7.50 an hour, or broke at $15 or broke at $30 an
it
hour?
broke at
It doesn't
100,000
matter
too.
what rate you're broke at, you're still broke, right? If you can't afford your healthcare costs, you can't afford your rent, you can't afford your mortgage payment, then who cares how much money you make?
Yeah,
It's
no. And I mean, to me, it all goes back to really education. I think
yeah,
that's kind of where a lot of this problem stems from. I mean, when I went to school, when I was in college, very blessed to have a full ride. So we didn't pay a penny. My sister, not blessed, had to pay out of pocket, and she graduated 2007, eight, I don't know, back then. And then she put herself through master's school, so she'd be a nurse anesthetist. And she had like $200,000 in student loan debt by the time she graduated. And now that's estimated to have been like, now would be in the threes. And so, in that
yeah,
short period, how much tuition has increased. And so her first like couple years of working, she worked two nurse jobs. And one of them she might have been making like $100 an hour. And 100% of her paycheck went to pay off student loans. And she did it extremely fast. But I'm like, geez, when you graduate, when you put yourself through school, do you think, oh, I need to work 80 hours a week and
I mean,
100% of
again,
my
it's me.
paycheck needs to go,
Yeah,
yeah, and I need to, here she is probably making $200,000-300,000 a year, and living in low income housing to pay off student loan debt, and that's the average American, in my
yeah.
opinion. Not everyone does it as aggressively as she does, but at the same point, it's kind of like, and then how do they pay that off if they're only going to be if they make a lot less?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So that's something that really, we're talking about my son earlier. That's something that gives me a little bit of anxiety as he gets a little older. And what is the price of tuition? Um, Heck, we're in an industry you don't even need a degree. You know,
True.
TA, you don't
I
need a
mean,
degree.
no,
Sales,
I
come on, you don't need a degree. You
no.
know, why
It
would
certainly
you?
helps to have, basic writing skills and mathematic skills and some kind of business acumen skills, things like that,
Sure.
accounting, etc. Basic understanding of marketing and, but I don't think you need a 4-year undergraduate liberal arts degree. Certainly not at 20, $30,000, $40,000 a year. You don't
No.
need that. I mean, I
Mm-mm.
have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in photography and graphic design. So yeah,
That's
and I've
the
been very
number
successful
one.
in right.
Yeah, and I'm journalism, right?
Yeah.
That is the number one question I get. I coached for a very long time swimming. I had a lot of young, basically work with the athletes until they go to college, help them get recruited and stuff. And I have a lunch meeting Friday with a junior. I'm helping the same thing. That's the number one thing I tell them. Like, it doesn't matter where you go to college. It doesn't matter where you get your degree from. Unless you want to go into like the medical field or
Exactly.
the
Unless you're going to be
legal
a doctor,
field
a
or
lawyer, or
finance.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Your degree really doesn't matter, and that's another thing we learned from the pandemic, right? I worked with a lot of college recruiting teams at CareerXroads, my favorite part of that job. And they were so excited that they didn't have to align themselves with the typical universities that they did, because they did virtual internships and virtual experiences. And they really got to start focusing and not focus on 4-year colleges too. They started focusing on 2-year colleges, and they're just their window of opportunity to bring in interns completely open, and they were able to provide internships to applicants and college age students that they never had before. So that was a huge win for them. And that was something like really exciting to see. And they would tell you the same thing, like, we don't need Ivy League educated people for this internship. Like, the person with the associate's degree is kicking ass just as much as the person from Princeton.
We're solving today's world's problems, right? Just going on, man.
Be a LinkedIn post.
I have no idea how we got on this candidate. this tangent, but that's a great,
Well, we're talking
conversation.
about the candidate experience, and a lot of that is
It
going back
is.
to what I said. It's unfortunately a lot of it. Yes, recruiters control the message they deliver, but what they can sell to a candidate, they can't control that. So, and that's what that's what the problem is, in my opinion. Why a lot of people are struggling.
All
Really,
right. So let's kind of give some practical advice here. So
yeah.
email campaign, LinkedIn campaign, SMS, which is text messaging. How many times should you reach out to a candidate before you start becoming annoying?
Oh, before you start coming, it depends what your message is.
Yeah. I have another job. I have another job. I have a job. I have a job.
Exactly.
Two.
Our data from our products suggests that you're going to have to reach out to a candidate 8 to 10 times via email. Before you start seeing a response. That being said, sometimes they respond right away. Sometimes they don't. And so that's before you start getting annoying. It's just, gosh, I think I don't know what that threshold is. I have a very short tolerance and patience level. So the second I get an email that I don't recognize, I block and report it to spam.
Block spam.
So how do I get on this list?
That's where
Really
my
easy.
email
Hiretual, come on.
reminders went. That's where my reminders went. Okay.
Yeah, no. But at the same point, it's kind of like, but that's needed. But that's why I would like to encourage recruiters to get outside of LinkedIn, right? Try email, try to pick up the phone. If I mean, hell, it's just you just don't see that very much. I don't know how successful phone conversations are nowadays.
If you don't recognize who's on the other end of this, how likely are you to pick it up?
Oh gosh, I know that's another thing blocked. But text messages, I just think now is you need to
Well,
be.
with A to P says you're not really supposed to do that. You can't be blasting, text messaging people anymore like used to be able to. Not that you used to be able to, but for
Yeah,
recruiting messages, you have one chance to make an impression, and then your second one, if they, you have to get them to opt in. If they don't opt in, then they're out, right?
yep, yeah,
You can't
exactly.
continually message them without their permission.
And that is a marketer's pain point right now,
Yes.
is getting people to opt in, because more people opt out than opt in.
So
Really, you know what I want to see in 2022? I want to see more organizations, more recruiters be transparent with
mm,
information. Like I would love to see LinkedIn jobs section where it has all salary information and people can just oh, this job pays 175,000. I'm going for that job. I would like to see stuff like that. I would like to see, this is what gender parity looks like at our organization. This is what DE&I does at our organization. Like the recruiters who are diversity recruiters, I ask them all the time, how many do you know your actual numbers and the employee makeup of the underrepresented talent you're searching for? No. Why? Well, HR won't give it to me. You see that all the time. And so
yeah.
I would like some kind of a standardization where, hey, ethnicity reporting, EEOC reporting, gender pair, all that stuff becomes very transparent with organizations, so candidates really know what they're walking into. And I think we're headed finally in that direction. I think we took a back seat with the crazy economy. I think we're headed back towards there because people are starting to get absolutely ridiculous offers to leave their current company, and so that's generally the first conversation that recruiters having to deal with. How much does
Yeah.
this pay?
One of the
Lead
things that
with
we
that
started
too.
doing as far as that transparency was one of the things that a few of my clients were very, very frustrated with was, look, we're relying upon all these social media sites to allow the candidates to communicate with these recruiters. And we're trying to facilitate ways where they can do it faster, quicker, easier, less threshold, less barriers to entry. On LinkedIn, they're limiting the number of invitations that you can accept. They've always done that, 30,000 first level. They've also limited the number of invites that you can send out or messages in mails that you can send out, even from a candidate perspective now. So what we created was a recruiter profile page, and it's got all their social contact in there, but it also has anonymous ways for candidates to communicate with that recruiter. You can send them an anonymous chatbot, an anonymous text message, an anonymous email, right? And this isn't anonymous from the candidate's perspective. It's not giving out the recruiter's personal contact information. It's not giving out their corporate email address or their personal cell phone number, but it allows them to go into a communication portal, and at least you can still have communication with them back and forth. This way, if you're getting spam from a candidate, which recruiters get all the time, we had plenty of candidates that would apply, serial appliers that would apply to 50 jobs at one time. It's like, come on, dude. Or do that.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
not going to work that way, Just because you apply to 50 jobs at my company doesn't mean you're going to get hired.
That was the worst. I remember coming in the morning and looking at Taleo and seeing, because when you had a candidate apply, it would be bolded. Like that was the first thing I did was pull up Taleo, right? How did the magic recruitment marketing work overnight? And everything would be bolded. And I'd be like, oh, happy days. And then you click in and it's like, oh, Sam Smith. Next one.
John Doe.
Yeah, I'm just like, no, it's one person who's applied for every job.
Click, delete.
Yeah, and that's what you do next, because you're like, he doesn't know what he wants. This is gonna, but then you're like kind of have that ethical responsibility. You're like, should I tell him not to do this? And I've tried to do that, and candidates who
it just becomes an argument.
It is an argument. They don't understand it. They don't get it. And it's like, okay,
I get it. They're frustrated. They need a job.
Why I declined you from everything. Yeah.
And there's got to be some kind of balance between the candidates that you're actually trying to find versus the McDonald's fry chefs that are applying to senior software architect positions because they've got some kind of unemployment insurance mandate that they have to meet. They have to apply to so many jobs in a week, right? There's got to be some kind of balance there. I don't know. All right. So 2022, this is going to air, I guess, first or second week in January. What do you see on the horizon for 2022? Let's get some predictions because today is only 12/14, right? December 14th. You got 2 weeks to Christmas.
I don't think it's going to change much next year. I think we're going to be in the same kind of economy. I think you're going to see more people start to embrace the aspect of automation in artificial intelligence more than they have. I think that recruiters are going to start becoming more transparent with the candidates because they have to.
I think let me back you up to the artificial intelligence conversation. So, what aspects of the recruiter features functionality? What aspects of the recruiter's position or job is AI trying to replace?
I don't think AI is trying to necessarily replace, there's some instance that you're seeing AI replace recruiters, but it's always, what I'm seeing is always in the areas where either a recruiter wasn't successful or it's giving a recruiter the ability to see information they weren't have before. Paradox is a great company that does a lot of automation, like on the retail side. I don't know how many recruiters were working to fill the local McDonald's in Roanoke, Texas, down the street from me. I doubt it was any to begin with, right? Get some AI on there, let's be a lot more successful. So I think you're seeing AI get adopted to replace a human that really didn't exist but should have existed. And then on the part where actual human is using AI, they're using it to make more intelligent, faster decisions using data and information that they typically would not been able to see in the time that was allotted to them. And so that's how I think.
We've been using it to, one of the more complex issues that we were having was we're having to schedule interviews with 3 different hiring managers. We're a recruitment marketing company, so we're not internal. We didn't have access. They were giving us access to their email, but so now we're scheduling interviews with the recruiter, the hiring manager, an external candidate, and then the next round of interviews. It's a lot of calendars to manage, right? So using an artificial intelligence calendaring system really helped us out with that. That was, we could not have handled that client if we didn't have that calendaring system. One of the other AI that we tested, it didn't work out, was we were trying to do some LinkedIn profile matching to our job descriptions so that we wouldn't have to have our sourcers just screening every resume, right? Just narrow it down from a couple thousand to at least a couple hundred, and it just wasn't accurate enough for what we needed it to do. And the amount of time that it would have taken to train just would not made sense, right? So
Yeah.
I think there is a use case there, matching candidate resume or social profile to a job description. We may not have found the right tool, or the right tool was too expensive for us. We're a smaller
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah, exactly. And we have that technology built into our platform, as well, to automate that. But yeah, it's those little tasks that have been such a nuisance and the pain in the butt, that we can start taking advantage of.
And
Absolutely.
so you're into marketing now, right? So I mean, I've had this discussion with a couple people on LinkedIn. They came from a marketing background, and then they were tasked to take over recruitment marketing. And they said, look, recruitment marketing, they usually come up through recruiting or talent acquisition, and that's the wrong way to do it. Absolutely, recruitment marketing should be part of marketing. If you give recruitment marketing to any decent marketer, they'll be able to figure it out. Now
Yeah.
you're on the you're on the flip side. Do you think that's true?
No. I have so many people who have been marketers for 20, 30 years that constantly call me for advice because they don't understand our industry.
Yeah.
Um, and it should be the exact opposite. I should
Yeah.
be calling them. And it's funny when I have a little bit of uncertainty with what I'm doing or what I'm executing, I'll run those questions by them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're doing it right. Yeah, you're doing this right." Like I said, to me, I think the hardest part about switching to a new job is knowing the industry, because I know what it's like to be a recruiter. I know what it's like to be a TA leader. I know what it's the pain points of the job. I have that street cred, and so without that, if I was brand new and into this role, no way.
Yeah, I
But
think
the hardest
employer
part is,
branding has the same thing because it kind of
yep,
evolved out of corporate branding, and you can't do it the same way. As
yep,
from a practical standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, they're very aligned, right?
yeah,
But
oh
when you
yeah,
get down to brass tacks and you start executing an employer brand strategy versus a branding strategy, or a recruitment marketing versus marketing, there's one main difference. Most jobs, you're trying to fill one role. You're
yep,
trying to find the person. You're not trying to find the persona that's going to buy your product. And there's thousands or tens of thousands or millions of people that are going to buy the product. You're trying to find the one job and then shut it down and start all over again. That's
exactly,
very
yeah,
different than keep our messaging, just change our messaging 2, 3 times a year and see what works better and change the platform. And it's very, very different. You can't
yes.
market a sales job the same way you do a nurse job, the same way you do a construction engineering job. You just can't.
Oh yeah, and I will say too, we have 250 employees at Hiretual. Some of them are engineers. That's the majority of them. Outside of the technology people, just about every single one of our employees has been a recruiter before. Whether it's on the marketing team, the community team, all the sales team, CSM team, et cetera, partnership, they've all been recruiters. Maybe for a year or two, but they all have walked the walk. And I think that's what makes them so good, especially when it comes to relating to the user and the buyer.
Yeah.
But yeah, to do it the opposite way, it's good
Well,
luck.
and there's lots of different kinds of recruiters. There's contract recruiters, there's contingency, there's retained, there's corporate, there's on-site, there's off-site. There's lots of different kinds of recruiters. There's paper pushing recruiters that they never know how to source a candidate in their life. They've never even done an intake meeting,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
With a
right.
hiring manager. I know lots of, and they make tons of money doing that.
Uh-huh,
And
uh-huh.
that's fine. I'm not saying that's a wrong way to do recruiting. It's just not how I've done it. I've always been the hands-on, more candidate sourcing, recruiter intake meetings. And then I've only made a handful of job offers in my day because I'm usually passing my stuff off to somebody that can actually close a candidate.
Exactly.
I've done it.
Yeah.
That's not my forte, right? So there's lots of different kinds of recruiters out there.
Yes,
Most people
yes.
don't realize it.
And that's why I like this industry so much. It's
Yeah.
ever evolving, always changing.
All right. Any last thoughts about your state of candidate engagement report or anything
No,
else for
I just recommend
2022?
people download it and take a look. It's like 30 pages long, but it's probably a 10-minute read. But it's very interactive. There's a lot of cool visuals in there, and there's a lot of great advice. So we take you through the problem of how we got to this point, the solution, and then how to measure it. And I would really think it's applicable for recruiters doing it and TA leaders who are responsible for the output. So I just highly recommend downloading that report, and then keep an eye out on our content. I've quadrupled the size of our content team in Hiretual, and I'm really doubling down on that next year. That's coming from SourceCon. That is my passion, and CareerXroads is also a great content producer. So we really want to start giving back to the industry and helping people in areas that we can.
Awesome. So if you give me a link to that, I'll definitely include it in the description here. So everybody, if you're interested in downloading the 2021 State of Candidate Engagement from Hiretual, there's a full report. I'll have the link right in the description. All right,
Yes.
everybody, make it a great one. Thanks, Shannon. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jeff.